Today, we're going to be talking about building real multi-generational wealth while you're running a cabinet shop. And look, today I know you might be involved in takeoffs or doing estimates or fixing the CNC, and thinking about multi-generational wealth is out of your head. But I want you to think about it, because if you don't think about it now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, your kids, your little girl, your little boy, are not going to be able to take advantage of the things you put in place today. So I brought in a business owner and a real estate investor who's built his own personal empire. Started with the same humble beginnings a lot of us has had, and he's going to share key points with us today about building wealth through your business. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick his brain on how to build a legacy. We're going to talk about tax implications, how you can get taxes working for you. You know, a lot of times in the media, you hear people on the street saying, well, those people don't pay any taxes. Well, sure, they pay taxes. They just pay different taxes, and they pay taxes at the minimum amount they legally can. And that's just smart business, right? So what are those tax implications you can take advantage of? What about SBA loans? Have you looked into those? And there's some tips on that Troy's going to share. And then some really important ways to modify your lease contracts if you're still renting. Now, before this episode went live, my team and I looked at our archive of professional development tools. And I think that the best one to support you is the Construction Millionaire Blueprint. It's going to show you all of the steps. And just as importantly, the very next step you need to take tomorrow to grow your business in the direction you want to go. It's a flow chart. You know, it's laid out nicely. That way you get to choose your starting place, because everybody comes in at a different place in their business turnaround, their business improvement. And then you can understand what the next step needs to look like, but also the step after that, and then the step after that. And the reason I built it that way is so that you can think about what's coming next and start to build your systems the right way. You know, hire the right people, start to look at the right priorities in your company. I think it's also important for me to add that this Construction Millionaire Blueprint is really going to make it clear how you need to be spending your time. It's not going to tell you to work more or work harder or work longer hours. You're already doing enough of that. But it is going to show you the path or the steps to working smarter, making the most of your time and taking deliberate steps. So if you want to build real wealth, you're going to need to build real assets. So anyways, send me a text, get the blueprint. Many of you know my cell phone number already, but if you don't, it's 315-903-7853. And just say blueprint, and then I'll know which one to email off to you. Let's go to the studio and talk to Troy Kearns. Mr. Troy Kearns, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you, Dominic?
I am good. I see you're dressed all warm and cozy. You get some snow there?
We've got snow, 14 inches on Saturday and Sunday of last week, along with an ice storm, and then another 2 inches today. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that just tells us the season.
It's great, man. It's starting to warm up, and they got the four-wheeler out there today and running the dogs around. Yeah, it's awesome.
Playing with the toys. Yeah. Well, everybody's got their own weather wherever they are in North America, but you and I are here to talk about real estate, which you are hands down expert in.
I would agree.
You would agree. Yeah. Today, you and I are going to be talking about how to build real wealth by running a cabinet shop. You know, everybody here is a business owner running a cabinet shop. But let me start with this, because people may not know who you are and they may not follow you. So I'm going to ask this question. It's going to sound pretty abrupt. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Troy Kearns, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing wood shop owners all over the world?
Yeah, so my name's Troy Kearns. Obviously, I hail from Seattle, Washington. I spent 28 years there, 15 years in Las Vegas, and then during COVID, I moved out to Kansas City. And basically, I'm a self-made guy who started as a realtor and then just started investing in real estate. And what happened is I just put up so much content about construction that I ended up working with a lot of different cabinet type of guys. In fact, funny that you mentioned that. I was just down in Naples, Florida, right before I flew into this snowstorm.
Yeah, you got a pretty good tan going. I was wondering about that story there. Yeah,
is it? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But and we actually just got a Murphy bed installed by the guy who did my cabinets in Florida. So I think that the fact that I happened to do a lot of construction on flips and houses and stuff like that, I'm always in front of guys who are in the trades, building things. And as you and I both know, Dominic, cabinets are one of those things that every house has. or some sort of trim carpentry or something like that. So I'm always talking to people. I've done the cabinet videos that I've done on my social media seem to hit the biggest. So it's
Yeah.
obviously something that people are very excited about talking about. And I think that everybody and their mother appreciates a good set of working cabinets. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
coolest things that we did in our house in Naples was we actually had one of the students who's in my mentorship program put them in. So he's a trim carpenter by trade, and he just put the Murphy bit in. He built everything out. I watched him dado everything out, and so I think it's just because I'm around guys. I'm a blue collar guy.
Yeah.
I'm a self made guy, and so I happen to be around people who are in the trades.
Yeah. You're around a bunch of self-made guys here,
Yeah,
and
for
even some
sure.
self-made women here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Sure.
It's interesting the way you approach that subject because the people that listen to the show aren't building cabinets either.
Yeah.
They're building a business, which is why I have you here because I so badly want them to build a legacy business. And
Mm-hmm.
can I tell you where my frustration comes in as a coach talking to, I mean, if I say hundreds of business owners a year, I'm lying. It's probably thousands, right?
Mm,
They're wasting their money on
mm,
rent or
mm.
leases,
Yeah.
right? It's just burning your money.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of guys are not taking the time to invest in their real estate. And to me, it doesn't matter what market you're in. You know, San Fran might be one of the hottest, most expensive markets in, well, among the world, among world cities, but I still think you need to invest in real estate somehow.
Well, let's break it down. So first of all, if you're in if you're in North America, and we'll call it the United States right now, so there's something called an SBA loan that is a 10% down loan that is only in the United States. Okay.
Mm,
And so that allows you as a small business or a large business really to get a 10% down loan, which is basically like an FHA loan for a residential house, which is a low money down loan.
mm,
And so you can also buy your cabinet equipment and your building with that property. Now, in addition to most the cabinet makers and cabinet guys know that they can bonus depreciate their equipment, but they probably don't know that they can actually depreciate their building as well. And you can do that through a tool called cost segregation. And cost
mm.
segregation in real estate allows you to basically, so let's use an example of the property is $1 million or it's 10 million bucks, whatever. Let's say 10 million. It's
Sure.
$10 million. They can write off a $3 million loss or 30% their first year. So if they're making $3 million, they basically zero out any money that they made. In addition to that, even if they were paying equal or more than that in rent over the time, if they do it right, I think we talked about a little bit pre-show, you could you only have to occupy 51% of that space. So if
Mm,
you were able to take the other 49% of that space and rent it out, you might even be able to pay for your existing mortgage in addition to those tax benefits of not having to pay taxes. So there's two reasons that guys, or there's multiple reasons that guys need to own real estate when they're doing business. One
yep.
is when they build a business, they don't necessarily build a legacy because usually when they're done with it, they have nothing to show for it. If they want to really have something to show for it, they need to buy real estate.
Yeah.
Number two is they're going to have taxes if they're doing business correctly and being profitable. And in order to offset those taxes, real estate is the number one largest tax shelter in the world. So when you hear people talk about, hey, this guy doesn't pay taxes, he avoids taxes. Yeah, you can do that legally through real estate and depreciation. So in my mind, you need a building, you need a space. You don't want to have to be subject to your landlord increasing your leases. You don't want to have to be subject to you
Hmm.
outgrowing your space. And if you do outgrow your space, you can just make that part of your monopoly play and growing into a bigger real estate space. So if you looked at it like, hey, I'm going to buy this shop for my cabinet shop, and I am going to buy something that makes sense for me and make something that I can grow into or rent out. Either way, it's going to make sense. And if your business goes down and in volume, at least the rents are going to
Right.
offset your mortgage and stuff like that. So that's one of the main reasons I think, Dominic.
Yeah, I love it. There, you covered so much ground right there. But I was telling you a story pre-show that I'll share right now with everybody here. We
Yeah.
have a cabinet maker, just a wonderful guy who was operating out of a dairy barn, you know, a small dairy
Mm,
barn. He was renting it or leasing it off family. So he got a really good rate for that. But through coaching, he was able to get profitable enough so that he bought raw land, subdivided half of it, built a building on there, and he's occupying a piece of that new building, but he's renting out the other 2/3.
Mm.
And he's now making more money on the 2/3 properties coming in so that it offsets his rent where he is now in a premium, brand new 2-floor building with a showroom, a beautiful shop, but he's paying less than he used to pay at a subsidized dairy barn that had an outhouse.
Yeah.
They didn't even have a
Well,
bathroom.
yeah. Not everybody's going to have a Google. Not everybody's going to have an Apple or a Netflix or anything like that, or even like, any of the large brands, but real estate is a tangible asset that people always are going to need,
Yeah. I mean, you're
and
not going to start the next Google. You're not going to start the next Netflix, but you could start a business and build a real estate empire.
yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of writing my second book, and I won't get into too much detail, but one of the things that I felt like I missed on my first one was the fact that guys, if they're it's called blue collar blueprint, and the reason I say that is because if you take whatever you're doing, whether it's cabinets, any business, and you add real estate to it, you you get rid of your taxes and you guarantee you're going to get wealthy. Versus if you have all these
Oh, I
employees,
like that. Yeah.
all of these other things, then you don't know if you're going to get wealthy. But with real estate, you absolutely know you're going to get wealthy.
And what's most important to me is generational wealth. All the
Yeah.
work, all the hours you're putting in right now, getting there early, staying late.
Mm.
Sometimes we do miss things because we've got to get a project done. The offset is that one day you're going to be able to hand a portfolio to your family, or they can split it when you're gone. That's a lot more than selling a bunch of tools that are now depreciated and pretty much old. Doesn't matter if you have
Yeah.
the newest CNC today, 10 years from now, that CNC is old. 10 years from
Mm.
now, that piece of real estate that used to cost $1, it doesn't cost $1 anywhere, by the way. But if it cost you $1 10 years ago, today it's worth $10. It's just the way things are.
Yeah, it is, and it's not going away. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that even with all the fires happening in California, everybody's going to be rebuilding
My
because
goodness.
because
Yeah.
that coastline of California is valuable real estate, and people want to be there, and they're not making any more land, and they're making plenty more stuff.
And they're making plenty more stuff. Yeah. We've got it's a tragic situation for sure. We have clients throughout that area, and
Mm.
I know there's going to be lots. Just it's a horrible situation, but it does mean there's going to be new building happening, and it does mean that our trade is never going to go away because all of those homes in Malibu that need architectural millwork are going to be coming back to the same builders that listen to these shows and the same cabinet makers that listens to this show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's say that somebody is in a market, Troy, that's just where their income is at is incredibly hard to get into real estate wise.
Mm.
So they literally can't. I'm going to say can't. There's never a can't with guys like you and I, but it just would be impossible as a first step to get their actual building. What are some steps I can take, some rungs on the ladder to get me up to that level?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps out of my mind is that if you're doing a lease, get an option to purchase it right away. Like,
Mm.
because if you're not there now, you could put an option on that contract to purchase, because if you get stuck in that lease 5 years later, you didn't ask that first question is like, would you be willing to sell to me? And can I get that in writing with a purchase option? Now, in 5 years from now, maybe you are in that position, but you didn't start with that thinking or that question even to that landlord. And I think that if if you're not talking to that landlord or not having that strategy, that long-term strategy, then you really should try to find the landlord who's willing to sell you that piece of property. And because otherwise that his end game is just to make you a tenant for the rest of your life, and your end
For the
game may
ret,
not.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so your end game should be different. So that's what I would say is number one, just as a strategy standpoint, is talk to any person that you're leasing from. And then I would strongly again go back to the SBA. I don't think a lot of people really understand that it can be used as a purchase vehicle for real estate. And if you're starting then the requirements. Let me give you a personal example. So I owned a towing business in Las Vegas in 2016, and we were able to buy
That's spicy. That's a spicy business. You owned a
yeah,
towing company in Las Vegas.
somebody told me I should have had a camera following me around then. I
No
definitely
kidding.
should have.
Yeah.
But the business was kind of a crappy business, and and basically, the best thing I did was I used an SBA loan to buy a piece of real estate, and the towing business, doesn't generate a ton of capital, But I was able to buy that piece of real estate for 10% down. This was a $1.5 million property,
Right.
10% down. And I sold it 11 months later when I shut down the business. The business was open for 4 years. And I bought multiple pieces of real estate searching for the right one for that business. And I sold that piece of real estate for $750,000 1 year later. So even though the business wasn't a great business, that real estate was a great business. And so I think that that's just something that, and you can look it up, 2306 Crestline Loop, North Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean it's just real estate. They're not making anymore, as you say. I mean, I'm not a real estate expert other than I love real estate and I wish I had more. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to somebody the other day, and he's a real estate investor. He's also just bought a cabinet shop. Jeff, I'm talking to you.
What's up,
And
Jeff?
Yeah, hey Jeff. And what I said to him was, I don't want to own all the real estate in the world. That's not my
Mm,
goal, but it is my goal to own all of the real estate that touches mine.
it's a good goal.
Boom.
Mm,
Yeah, and
that's a
and so
good
much of
goal.
what you and I do is about the mindset. For instance, your tip there, putting an option to buy the building or the property when you'd first do the lease. At least the option is there, and the landlord has to accept your offer or has to open up that conversation. But if you don't have it there, you're just an ATM machine to that landlord for the rest of your life.
Well, I'll backtrack. So this is, I kind of learned this going through real estate school back in the day. But so when Disneyland opened up in California, everybody went, once they knew it was happening, they started buying the real estate around there, and Disney really lost out on a lot of that. So when they opened up the one in Orlando, what they did is they hired a team of attorneys to go around and lock up properties on options. And an
Oh,
option is just an option to purchase that real estate. It's usually like, hey, I'm going to pay you $5,000 for the option in the next 10 years to buy your property at X number of dollars. And so, for the person selling it, it's like if they got the right number, they don't really care. You're putting
hmm,
a small amount of money down, you're recording that against that property, and then you're protecting your future interest. And a lot of people don't think long term, but you should always be thinking long term. And so if you're sitting in that property and going, well, I'm going to get a lease, well, and I may not want to be here, but if you ask the question, are you willing to sell it to me later? Yes, I am. Okay, let's put that in writing and let's lock that up now. And that way it's an option for me. And it's
yeah,
it's a little bit of insurance against your future interest. And you might say, well, hey, in 5 years, wow, this real estate's actually worth more than the option money. Now, even if you weren't going to buy it, you could sell it because now you have the option on it.
you
And
have the option. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Is that the same thing as a right of first refusal, or is that's a different clause? I guess if I asked you for a right of first refusal, that just
No,
means you have to come to me first.
yeah. So the right of first refusal is similar, but it's just a right. An option is usually a recorded document. So
Okay.
it's a recorded document with a future sales price.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's more it's there. There's got
It's a
teeth to it.
future price.
Yeah, it's a future
So
price.
a right of first refusal is like, hey, I got to give you the option to buy it, but
Yeah,
if I could name my price later. So you got to refuse it. But if I do an option, we're locked in at a certain price.
I love it. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen too, because we've also seen a lot of situations where the owners of the actual property, so you've got the person operating the business on the property, then you've got the owners of the property, but those owners pass away and they leave it to their kids, and their kids are like, I don't want this thing, just sell it, take the money, because the kids are
Yeah.
fighting or the kids are living somewhere else now. It means nothing to them. It probably did to the original owners.
Yeah.
And now that property goes to the hands of a new landlord, and you've control, completely lost control.
Totally. It
Yeah.
happens all the time, more often than you would think. Um, People don't think people are going to think they're going to live forever. And yeah, you're right. Like, leases happen quickly. If you get that option, it's just something that you could really easily do. It's just a small ask. And so, but I mean, even thinking a little bit step further, when you mentioned the dairy farm, I thought that was such a good way to start the conversation because it got me thinking that the other loan that's out there and it's in rural areas. And funny that you mentioned that because the guy who built my cabinets in my house right here,
Yeah.
his property was in a rural area. So to do a USDA loan, which is a rural area, you go to USDA.gov and
Hmm.
you just enter the property address and you can get a 0% down loan in a rural area. Okay. And I'm pretty
Mm.
sure you can do business things as well. But even if it was like under your own home and you're building a barn or something for the
Yep.
cabinet shop,
Yep.
like you said, the dairy barn, that could be the way. So if you're in, say, California, there are rural areas outside of California, 30 miles out.
Let's
There's rural areas everywhere, you know?
let's just say you're in Riceville, Tennessee, and that guy knows who I'm talking to right now. Uh, yeah,
What's up,
you.
Riceville? Yeah.
What's up, Riceville? What's going on there? They got hit with snow too,
Did
because they're
they?
right near the border of Georgia. They're near
Are they?
Athens. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. They got hit hard. So yeah, so the point here is there's lots of options. But
Yeah.
what we often hear, especially before we start working with clients, is, well, there's no way we could afford real estate. Real
Mm.
estate's out of our, it's way beyond us. And I have to stop and say, well, let's find a way. Instead of hearing the answer no, let's find a way over the problem, through the problem, under it, around it, or redefine it so it fits my purposes better. You know,
I think that the biggest thing is it's a couple things. Number one is if they start looking at it as, well, how can I afford it? Like I'm going to get the 51% and then I'm going
mm,
to offset it with additional rental income so I can afford it. And maybe I actually am paying less or no money for my lease now because that's one thing. And then if they look at like, well, we're paying X thousands of dollars in taxes and this real estate will offset that, then I'll give you another perfect example about that. I had a property that I bought in Hattiesburg, Mississippi called Pine Ridge, and it
mm,
was a 42 unit apartment complex I paid $2.6 million for, and it dropped down to 30% vacancy, and I actually only cash flowed on it $8,000 that year, but it offset $300,000 in income taxes. So yeah, the property only made me $8,000, but it really made me $308,000 because it offset a huge amount of income. So
right.
sometimes you just got to look out things outside the box. No pun
Mm.
intended.
We're in the business of those boxes here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about a guy who is in a market that is really tough to get into real estate and they're making okay money but not great money? Should they be investing in a real estate portfolio elsewhere? Like let's say Riceville, Tennessee. So they're buying apartment buildings there, so they're building up a portfolio and then able to use those funds to eventually, what would you call it, boomerang or leapfrog back into their market.
Yeah, I think no matter what you're doing, whether yeah, we're just talking about buying stuff that you live in or buying stuff that you work in or occupy, but absolutely 100%. I tell guys in California all the time, buying the Midwest, buying the Southeast, buying any of those markets, you should be buying real estate, period. Even if it's
Right.
not just for your own business, if you're buying rental properties, if you can't, like you said, you can't afford to do it for whatever reason, you can't afford not to do it because it's going to offset your taxes, it's going to create passive income, and it's going to create that generational wealth that's going to last you well beyond your lifetime. And there's a lot of like things that you could do to like use that plus insurance to really run the gamut on things so that you're playing the whole game, the whole monopoly game.
Yeah. This is such good information. And I hope it gives people a really good insight into at least starting to think about it. If you're not doing it now, start to think about it. Um, if somebody wants to find you in this big world, Troy, where do they find you? How do we track you down?
You could just Google my name, Troy Kearns, and you can go and find me on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, X, which I'm really trying to grow right now. I really like that platform.
Mm.
And YouTube, we have a channel, we have a podcast, the Millionaire Mentorship Podcast. So all of that stuff out there, anything that people want to find, that's where I'm at. Um,
Didn't
and
you say you have a
and
book as well?
I do have a book. Yeah, it's just we have it in Habla Español, Millionaire Mentor, and Millionaire Mentorship in English as well. So
Oh,
both of them on
nice.
Amazon that they can buy anytime they want. And we also give a free copy out if they go to my Instagram and just want a digital copy. They could just comment the word book.
So the answer is if somebody can't find you, they've really stopped looking. They're just not trying.
Well, all you got to do is Google. Like I said, just Google my name. I've been on the internet for like
It's
25 years. So
crazy, isn't it? Yeah. It's if you can't find me, if you can't find this Dominic Rubino, you're going to find a high school wrestler, Dominic Rubino. That kid ain't me.
is it any good?
I don't know. I don't know. I just keep seeing his results come up when somebody says Google your own name. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Troy, thanks very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Great insights today.
For sure. Love being here. Thanks so much, Dominic.
Thank you. Bye bye.
No problem.
Well, well, well. Thanks, Troy. Troy, hey, listen, I wonder if you ever heard the story about the hobby woodworker who thought his barn was haunted. And so he converted it into a full time wood shop. Yeah, he was possessed by the entrepreneurial spirit. Listen, you guys gave me feedback a couple of months ago that the shows needed to get tightened up and shortened. And one of the pieces that got sacrificed was the dad jokes, mostly. If you didn't catch the one that just happened, then I'm doing my job properly. Hey, the key takeaways today from Troy was how to move from building cabinets to building a legacy. I want to get you in that mindset of growth, how to get tax laws to work in your favor, because real estate is a huge tax shelter for you. By the way, not just in the USA, but also in Canada, and I'm sure in other countries as well. Troy brought up SBA loans, and he also threw in there the USDA loan for those of you who are running on, I'll say, agricultural properties, maybe ranching properties. So there's other loans available you might be able to take advantage of. And then I thought it was interesting that we talked about clauses that you can add to your lease contract if you're still renting your space to give you some rights in the future to potentially buy it, or you have a value that you could sell in the option itself to sell that to somebody else. So that's pretty cool in itself. Those are the kinds of secrets that other business owners don't talk about, that they are probably using already on their family's legacy path. And then, of course, we talked about the blueprint SOP. If you want that, go ahead and get in touch with me. Please remember to like and comment and subscribe to the show so that we get more listeners, so that we can continue to go down the path of bringing you education and topics that make sense to contractors. And again, if you want more secrets that other contractors are already using that you didn't know about, this is my cell phone right here. Shoot me a text. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853 and say blueprint, and then I'll know which one to send you. By the way, here, if you're on YouTube, you can continue to watch YouTube and look at a couple of topics that are going to help you with this. One of them is one of our business coaches, Lee Miller. He's talking to us about gross versus net profit. And the reason that's important is because that net profit is where you're going to get your real estate down payment and payments. The other person you could speak to is another business coach of ours named Jake Power. Jake is in a very expensive real estate market, and he just moved from 5 acres to 12 acres where he purchased and redeveloped that property. He actually even lived in his trailer on that property while he was building it. How many of you have done that very same thing? I'm talking to you in Colorado there. Then we also have an episode with Mike McAllowitz, who wrote Profit First for Contractors. Again, so that you know how to put your money aside the right way so that you can invest in real estate. And then an episode with Paul Akers, how can I make my cabinet shop run better? And that, of course, getting you that efficiency in the shop is really going to help you to be as profitable as you can be on any job. So make sure you stick around YouTube and watch a couple of those other episodes. Look, as you know, folks, this is just a slim replacement for the day when you and I can have a cup of coffee or maybe a glass of wine across the table from each other. And I look forward to that. Hope it happens one day. Have a great day. Thank you for checking in, and we'll see you in the next episode.